Welcome to Architrave of Gaming. I'm the Archmaster. Today we are talking about the 3 pillars of adventure: autonomy, competence, and connectedness. Wait, what? Isn't it exploration, combat, and social interaction? Yes, actually, but there is another way of looking at this, a way that the GM can look at the game itself and what they are promoting and the kind of opportunities they want to give the players so that the players feel these things. And these 3 things that I mentioned previously, I'm about to get into, are essentially just another flavor of the 3 pillars of adventure that we all know. So, exploration, combat, and social interaction, these can be seen as essentially freedom, power, and status. You will see this theme repeated time and again throughout this channel, that everything in gaming can be crunched down to freedom, power, and status. Exploration is part of freedom, the freedom to explore. Combat is part of power, overpowering your enemies, getting loot and treasure and magic and all that. And status is social interaction. Status meaning not just like, the modern version of status where it's like, oh yeah, money and cars and women and all that stuff. No, it's more specific of just social status. It's your standing with people, right? You could call it standing, or you could call it social, or you could call it relationships. But relationships is kind of long, and so I just chose the word status, but you get it. It's essentially freedom, power, and relationships, but we call it freedom, power, and status. So, these 3, it's called the self-determination theory, and video game designers use this theory to essentially reward the players for playing their game. And they reward them for, all the time and effort it takes to play a video game. They reward them with giving them these 3 things. So, autonomy, which falls under freedom, competence, which falls under power, and connectedness, which falls under status. You'll see these are also exploration, combat, and social interaction. So autonomy, exploration, freedom. This is your player's ability to do what they want in the world and not be railroaded, not be constrained, not be told what they have to do. And that's not to say that constraints are bad. Of course, constraints are wonderful. You have to absolutely have them, because without constraints, there is no real freedom of choice if anything and everything is open all the time, right? If you can just shoot laser beams out of your eyes and fly through walls, then what's the point, right? You have to have constraints. But the autonomy to choose what you do with your constraints is absolutely essential. It's just an innate reward in our own brains as human beings that we want autonomy. Second, competence. This can be seen essentially as power. Like, I'm able to do things. You have to be able to accomplish things, to overcome things, to be faced with a challenge and overcome it, and you feel competent. That is also mainly where we get that in things like D&D is through combat. Combat, winning, beating the enemies is how we feel competent. It's how we feel power. And thirdly, status, or what we actually do in, a D&D game, social interaction. That status, the reward we get is connectedness. That is the reward we get for a social interaction and seeking status. We get connectedness with our fellow players, our GM, the world, especially NPCs. So you as a GM, when you are making your game, keep in mind not just exploration, combat, social interaction, because those are kind of like broad, and those are more of just like, oh well, I have to prepare, exploration encounter, combat encounter, social interaction encounter, and it's more mechanical. Instead, think, I want my players to feel these things, and this is what will get them coming back to my game time and again when they feel that they have autonomy. So I'm going to give them real choices to make that actually matter, and I'm not going to quantum ogre them, because that's just railroading. I'm going to actually let their choices matter. Competence, I'm going to give them a challenge, and when they overcome it, they can feel good. I can reward them, and just by the challenge itself being real, and you not pulling your punches, and you not holding their hand, that makes the overcoming of the challenge rewarding, and they feel competent. And lastly, connectedness. It's not just a social interaction. If your goal is only to make a social interaction, that can be the most boring thing ever. That can be talking to the baker, right? But connectedness. Players want to feel connected. Like, I have a relationship with this person, with this, NPC, this baker, if you actually make a tether between them, then that is more meaningful. That's also something you can use later in plots and whatnot, tug on their heartstrings. But you need to actually give them strings to these various NPCs and the world itself in order for you to, tug on them in the first place. So don't just keep in mind social interaction, keep in mind connectedness. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.